Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome Dana Krush on stage, who will be beginning this session.
Good morning. Shalom. Namaskara. It's an amazing audience. And despite the fact that I'm not an IIMBue alumni, I can proudly say that we have an Israel center at IIMBue. So I'm partly half alumni, if I can say. Thank you. Nirmala gave me instruction to start with provocation. So I'm going to take a risk because it can backfire at me, but let's try, okay? Can you help me? Can you hear me? There's somebody shouting. Okay. Can you help us with hearing me? She doesn't hear me too, huh? Nirmala? Can you hear me now? Okay. So, I need your help. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to answer honestly, okay? And raise your hand if you can, please. How many of you, if you raise your hand, if you think that a leader crying is perceived as a weakness, especially if the leader is a lady? Can you please raise your hand? Is crying perceived as a weakness in nowadays leadership? Hi, so I see. Good. I'm happy. So you solved my dilemma. I can go home now before I start, I think, because not many hands were raised, and I'm very, very happy. But it's still a dilemma for me. And I'll share with you a brief story, and then I'll run through some amazing women that exist in Israel that I saw so much of a mirror reflection from the 3 years that I'm here in India. Yes, sir? Still not audible. Okay. Technology always helps us, but can also backfire. We have to go with this, okay? Now you can hear me? Can you hear me? It's okay. I have to ask again. What do we do? Mike? Now you can hear me? Thank you. Should I repeat the questions or? Okay, we'll conduct the survey again. Please raise your hand if you think that a leader crying is a manifestation of weakness, especially if the leader is a female. Raise your hand high. I'm still happy. Not even less than half of the hands were raised. And it's a dilemma. It's not something, there's no right and wrong here. I want to take you to the 20th century before we dive into the 21st century. I joined the army on the 20th century. I was 18. And as I mentioned before, I belonged to a family of farmers. Every Israeli woman, many Israeli women joined the army. It's compulsory. So I joined the army. And I went to an officer course. And I got a very, very complicated but very rewarding assignment. I was a captain for bereaved families, which means I accompanied families that lost their child, which is something very hard for a 19-year-old girl to cope with. And the dilemma of tears as a extremely junior leader back then was very, very on my mind. And the first thing I've done is bought sunglasses that you cannot see through, because I was sure I will shed tears, and I was afraid that it will not be perceived by the families that I'm supposed to condole and represent the Israeli Defense Force, and the others as something professional, as something dignifying, as something that equates with being a leader or a leader to be. I have to tell you that now I'm 47, so in the 21st century, a few years had gone through, And I think that this dilemma, and the third that raised their hand, it's still valid. You see male leaders here also shed some tears. But when a female does it, it's still perceived as something not professional, hysterical, and so on and so forth. Both here and both back home in Israel. But we're not going to do a feminist session. The focus will be on leadership, on female leadership. And my question, and I would have headed in a question mark, because I would have wished that there was no discussion on the 21st century, are we still emerging? 50% of the population, are we still emerging? But that's where we are. So let's dive back for a second to the 20th century with those two amazing leaders. One of you know, your Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi, and the other is our first and last till date Prime Minister, Golda Meir. An amazing, incredible lady that I will try to share with you a short movie, less than 2 minutes, about her, and then we'll speak a bit about the dilemma of leadership on the 20th century and the characteristic of female leadership then.
Policies to keep our people alive and to keep our independence. How can anybody doubt the right that we have that is similar to the right of 125 peoples in the world? We value life, not only our own, just we value life. And this is our strength.
I just spent a long time with Golda Meir just after the Six-Day War and before the Yom Kippur War, just days before. She said, "Don't worry, Senator. We have a secret weapon in our conflict with the Arabs." And I said, I turned like she's going to tell me some secret. I looked at her. I said, "Madam Prime Minister, what's that?" She said, "We have nowhere else to go."
Thank you very much. She was a source of inspiration, as many, many women in Israel are till date, and as many women like Indira Gandhi and so many others are here. But that is the 20th century, and you heard a lot about wars, and she was facing a lot of challenges of leading our nation while in times of war. And it's a different ballgame, as you all know. But still, back then, our founder, like our Gandhi, Mr. Ben-Gurion, he used to call her the only man in the cabinet. I know you can smile, but it's something that, like, you, back then, and unfortunately some women leaders still till date, are adopting male characteristic, assertiveness, if not to say aggressiveness, in order to feel equal to majority predominant in male in the discussion table. But that's the 20th century. Let's dive into the 21st. And this was almost our second prime minister. Her name is Tzipi Livni. And she was my foreign ministry in the times of in between one war to a big operation that we had. And I think that she represented the transition of the emerging to a new set of leadership of the 21st, but with many of the same dilemmas that women leaders face. For example, she was asked how you can be a prime minister because at 2 a.m. at night, the chief of staff may call you to ask if to go to war, yes or no. Those kind of questions, like, they would not have asked a man. And the reality is that this politician belonged to a group of roughly 30% of the women are in politics, are in the MLAs, Rajya Sabha or Lok Sabha or the Vidhan Sabha here, 28 exactly, but let's say it's 30%. And if you go to the municipalities, like the mayors, we have only 256 main cities. Only less than 3% of them are led by women. So there's still kind of we're not 50% of. If you want, afterwards, I'll share some, in the Q&A, we can share a bit more about her and her leadership role. But I'll just add one sentence about her. She took a female version of leadership role when she decided she almost won the last election in 2014, but she chose not to create a coalition that will mean a compromise on her set of belief. And I think if I'm trying to say, to crystallize three things that I think that women leadership contains, one is the sensitivity that we had spoken about, the crying or crying potential, which I see as a soft power and not a weakness, but we can debate that if you want. The second thing is multitasking, and that we all know that women can do zillion things simultaneously. The third thing is that we are building coalitions constantly. We are sharing, we are building those kind of partnership, and on occasion we decide not to join a partnership because we think it's jeopardizing our set of belief. And if I'm allowed to kind of analyze this leader from a side, I think that that's what her call back then. I have to brag about so many amazing leaders that we have in Israel. So I basically chose 7. 4 you see here, and the next gen you'll see in the next slide. But as I told you, I'm already 3 years in India. I was 2 years as deputy ambassador in Delhi, and 1 year here as a consul general to the south of India. And I see so many amazing, powerful ladies in every field. And I enjoy every second of partnering with them and enjoy and being inspired by them as much as I'm inspired by those ladies that are only a manifestation of the leadership that we have back home. I'll share with you some stats on those 4 representation of women in Israel. If you go from your right, Karnit Flug, is it your right or your left? Left. I need to work with my son on my skills of right and left, but we'll go, we'll not go there. Karnit Flug is our RBI. She's our governor of our central bank. The first time we have a lady. Amazing lady. I've been able to attend some of her meetings. The way she leads, I think that's the 3 things that I had mentioned before. There's a checklist to each and every one of them. And in the banking system, so much like here, except the fact that you don't have an RBI, which is a female. I don't know if you had it in the past, but now I know that you don't. We have 5 big banks, because Israel is only less than 9 million people, and Bangalore is a bit more than 9 million people. But the leadership of the banks are run by women, so much like here. And you know the leaders of your banking systems. If we'll go to the judicial, 51% of the judges are female in Israel. Thank you. Thank you. And the third column is science. It's the future. It's many of the things that had been sensing the future, AI, chemistry, biotechnology, the leadership that was in the front row before. We have a few Nobel Prize laureates. One of them is this lady that won a prize for chemistry. And it really is a manifestation of the fact that there are still barriers, but there are amazing, inspiring women that are amazing leaders, amazing professionals, and alongside, gender-wise, they are women. That's the way I see the issue of women in leadership. Let's go to the next gen.
As a woman, we are no
Before
less.
we go there, this moved a bit before, so we'll try to move it up. Okay.
As a woman,
Okay, this is the next gen, and then I come back to the movie. These three ladies are the next generation of leaders in the cutting-edge technology, both of technology and of social technology, of social entrepreneurship. And I'll start with Kira, because the last lady, I will show the movie about, a bit about her. But Kira, she's now 34. You know that Israel, people came from all over the place. And she immigrated to Israel from former Soviet Union, from Russia, at the age of 4. At the age of 15, she joined our Technion. And I know I may raise some shouting here. The Technion is the equivalent to the IISc, not IIMBue. Can I say IISc here? It's okay? It's legit? Okay, thank you. So Kira started at the age of 15, studying computer science. Finished her PhD, if I'm not mistaken, less than 25. Entered data mining, AI solution, was working for Microsoft, for eBay, and now she has her own company predicting sales. And remember the next gen panel that was here just before us? They can communicate very, very wonderfully together. And one of the other things is that she was identified by MIT as one of the 35 innovators under 35. The lady in the middle is Adi Altuer. And again, this time I chose social entrepreneurship. And also she was, by the Time magazine, identified as the next gen. The last lady, I don't know how much you know about the demographic of Israel, but Israel is a Jewish democratic state with roughly 70% Jews and 30% non-Jews, many of them Arabs, Muslim, Christians, and there are other small minorities. The last lady that I would like to share a short 2-minute movie about her, is a leader from this minority. So we have a double minority because still women are, in a way, a minority. In the Arab community, it's even the second tier, which is an amazing, inspiring woman, and that I would love you to hear a bit about her. Can you help me with the movie?
As a woman, we are no less professional, no less potential than men. We are not equal yet, unfortunately, but we are supposed to be equal. I was born in Acre. When I have decided to study biology, everyone said, okay, she's gonna be a teacher, and then Prince Charming will come along and she will get married, have kids, and do it the right way. No one have ever think about, okay, she's gonna be a biologist, she will have a career, she will be a CEO of one company one day. I was very proud to be one of the few Arab people in Israel in this field. Sibana will be a game changer in the aesthetic market, especially in the dermal filling market, because there is no product, no drug, no medical device, nothing that has the indication of preventing fat reabsorption. And Sibana does. We are supported by the Office of the Chief Scientist. It's a governmental institute that funds up to 60% of our R&D expenses yearly. When the OCS supports a company, it means that this company has potential. It means that they believe in the company product. And this is support for us. In Sibana, we have a very unique diversity. We have Jews employees, we have Arabs, Christian and Muslims, and we work in a very good cooperation. We all have one target, and that is to make Sibana success, a great success. I don't want to change the world, but I want to change what I can change in my microcosmos, in my little place. So yeah, I encourage women to be a part of Sibana. I truly believe that the next generation will be different. We will break the...
This is my last slide, and I think that this is a manifestation of 20th century leaders. And you have here Leela Prasad, which is an amazing Karnataka minister and politician that I'm sure that many, many of you know personally. And this is a gathering just 10 or 11 days ago that we've done in BPAC, that is basically one of Kiran initiative run by Revati Ashok, a VC, angel, people from the business, women from the business and men trying to bring back to the community, trying to upgrade the next generations of leaders. And I think if I'm summarizing and if I'm looking at the title of this 2 days of Sensing the Future, it is, if I'm from my narrow perspective as an Israeli, sensing the future is triple I. It's India, Israel, and innovation. And it goes back to what Mr. Raghuram said in the beginning, that you are enlarging IIMBue and you are going to have an innovation focus more and more. All those components, this partnership, this triple I partnership, led by men and women together, that will help us face the challenges we are lying ahead. So thank you so much.